Hey there, welcome to Gonza Gardens. In today's video, we're going to go over how we designed the expansion of our food forest, and we selected the plants that work best in Zone 9B, Central Florida. Check it out. When designing the food forest, you want to consider how much space that you have available. Even with limited space like this, you can have year-round edible perennials with proper pruning and plant selection. We live in a normal suburban neighborhood, so we want to maximize the amount of food that we can produce in this small area. Typically your fruit trees will want to be 20 feet apart, but we're using high density gardening, so our fruit trees are about 8 feet apart. We're also utilizing permaculture principles, and we're going to fill all the layers of the food forest. Here we are at an overstory tree. It may not look like much now, but this ice cream bean is going to grow up and provide a canopy for more sensitive trees like a cacao and a jaboticaba. With proper pruning, any tree can be a canopy tree. As you'll see in other areas of the garden, we're using mangoes as a canopy. Like the cacao earlier, this coffee plant down here is an understory tree. These trees like filtered sun or even complete shade, and we're going to maintain them to be around 8 feet tall. Blueberries or even this Oliver loquat are occupying the shrub layer. The shrub layer is going to be maintained around chest height, and we're going to trim it as needed throughout the year. The next layer of our food forest is the herbaceous layer. We're using plants like African blue basil in this area. Beneath the ground is the root layer. Plants like cassava are growing food for us underneath the other plants. Although sweet potatoes produce in the root layer, they're also part of the ground cover layer because their leaves are edible and a substitute for lettuce. We're also growing things like Seminole pumpkin on the ground cover. The last layer of the food forest is the vine layer to occupy this vertical space. We're growing things like Malabar spinach, up this moringa. We'll also have vanilla growing, and it'll go in the trees once they get a little bit larger. Before all of this, the backyard had a garden that existed for about 8 years. It wrapped around pretty much the whole property, and then when we did this expansion, we literally took pencil to paper and created a sketch of the yard. Accounting for the existing powder puff and fruit trees, we began to design. We knew that we wanted a true forest feel, so we designed these winding pathways between islands of tropical edibles. Being mindful of ease of access, we didn't want to place any high-need plant in an area where it would be forgotten. Various sized circles were placed on the sketch to represent future big and small tree placements, and then more research was done to discover which fruit tree would do best in each position. Taking into account the position of the sun as it moves south in the winter, we wanted to be mindful that more sun-loving trees like mangoes got the sun that they would love. It's also important to think about your topography and areas that might have standing water. So there are plants like avocados that absolutely hate getting drowned in water, and there are plants like bananas and sugarcane which might love being a little bit more wet. So be mindful of your topography whenever you're laying out and designing your food forest. Next up is plant selection. Most importantly is make sure that you're growing what actually grows in your area. We're in the subtropics of Central Florida in USDA Zone 9B. We started our food forest about a year ago, and we've already had to remove about a dozen citrus due to citrus greening and about as many temperates because of chill hours. We've made videos on both these topics, so feel free to check those out. When choosing fruit trees, you want to make sure that you grow different seasons. You don't want to grow just mangoes because then you'd only have fruit during the summer. This is star fruit. Once star fruit gets established, it can give you fruit from June all the way until February. This is Maycock sapodilla. With different varieties of sapodilla, you can get this fruit year-round here. Other plants like this choquette avocado, loquat, and black sapote can give you fruit in the winter months. Fruit trees themselves have different varieties that can harvest at different times. Knowing this can help you plant an early, a mid, and a late season variety. This is a coconut cream mango. It'll give us fruit in June and July. Dwarf Hawaiian is another mango that's an early season. You can harvest it as early as April, and this is a late season mango. This is M4. This can be harvested as late as August and September. So knowing all the early, mid, and late season, the plants that we chose to put in our food forest will have mangoes from as early as April all the way through September. For avocados, this choquette will harvest in about January through February. This Ronnie will come next from February through April. In July, August, and September, we'll be harvesting Simmons avocados, and Lulu will come last in October, November, and December. Growing a variety of trees in your area is a good idea also because some might not do well in your location for reasons like disease, growth habit, vigor, and or chill hours. This mango is Pineapple Pleasure. It is extremely susceptible to powdery mildew. There are more disease-resistant varieties of mangoes like Pickering, Cogsall, or Florgon if you didn't want to spray more regularly or lose some of that production because of the disease. We planted Florigon, Cogtal, and Pickering in the front yard last year because we knew that those were going to be the workhorses for the garden and not have any problems. It wasn't until we expanded into this expansion that we got more of the exciting mangoes. Now, in terms of growth habit, just because two trees are the same type of tree doesn't mean they're going to grow the same. These are puff trees. Although they're not edible, they play an important role in the food forest. They are nitrogen fixers, provide excellent source of chop and drop, and demonstrate my next point perfectly. This pink one, as you see, is more weepy, is more of a sprawling canopy, much like that of the lemon meringue mango. This red powder puff is more vertical growing, so more like the Venus mango. So when you're designing your food forest, you want to account for the growth habit of your trees whenever you're planting them next to one another. Trees can also vary in their vigor. So aside from the fruit trees, this is moringa. So we needed a tree to be very vigorous to provide shade to the lower trees to be a canopy. So moringa is a very vigorous. In terms of fruit trees though, Venus and lemon meringue are extremely vigorous mangoes. They're going to require a lot of space for them and more pruning to keep them maintained. For your information, a little bit more less vigorous mango trees could be Pickering, Cogtal, Ice Cream, Dwarf Hawaiian, and Rosy Gold are some examples. Another thing that needs to be considered when creating a food forest is how much work you want to input into the system. These are bananas. Bananas are extremely high work. So they drop all of their lower leaves as they push up new ones. So we're constantly having to come in here and pruning up those lower leaves to allow for light penetration and good airflow. Things like mangoes are a little bit lower maintenance. So you just have to go in there and prune the tips, ideally after fruit set and then after harvest. The last consideration for whenever you're creating your food forest is grow what you want to grow. When we designed this, I really wanted to grow cacao. We have 3 cacao trees growing now. Behind here is one of them. Knowing that cacao, like we said earlier, is an understory canopy tree, we had to plant these pioneer papayas. So underneath these 3 papayas, if you want to look back here, here's one of our cacao trees. So cacaos are tropical perennials that require shade. So we put all of this and needed to spend a lot of effort thinking about how to make this environment best for that plant. So grow what you want to grow. As the Chinese proverb goes, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, the second best is now. Don't be afraid to make mistakes in the garden, it's very forgiving. I hope that you enjoyed the video today. You learned something about designing a food forest and filling it with some of the perennials that work best in your area. Thanks again for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a comment, thumbs up, subscribe. See you in the next one. So here is the plan for the next round of fruit trees.